Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us tonight on this beautiful day in America. More indictments are imminent, and John Bolton is screwed, folks. The Justice Department this afternoon, of course, presenting evidence to a federal grand jury in Maryland against the former National Security Advisor for transmitting highly classified materials through his private AOL account during his 2018 and 2019 tenure with President Trump. Did the beard, did the mustache not remember what happened to Hillary Clinton and what Hillary Clinton did? This investigation centers on documents labeled secret and confidential related to weapons of mass destruction, as well as personal notes resembling a diary that may contain additional classified documents. Prosecutors argue that Bolton willfully removed, retained, and transmitted national defense information in violation with sections of the Espionage Act of 1917, folks. This, folks, the first real test of justice, not the indictment of James Comey for the parking tickets, not trying to undermine what the indictment against Comey, but this is the real crimes, folks. Espionage, treason. This is what these people have done. This is what they've done to this country. This is what they've done under President Trump. Now, the great thing about the times of today with technology and how things are so advanced is that we have receipts on just about everything, folks. So I figured we'd pull a clip of John Bolton when they raided President Trump's house and how he prayed that they expeditiously get Trump and that they get this taken care of, and that President Trump didn't care about classified information when they briefed him on it. Let's take a little trip down memory lane. What? Right? Why not?
Any given moment. But I don't think he cared about the classification system. I don't think he appreciated the sensitivity of this information, and he didn't appreciate the sensitivity of how it was often acquired, the so-called sources and methods. So this had been briefed to him before I arrived. It was repeated frequently. I think it simply had no impact on him whatever.
There's a couple of different ways that people think about this, and people who are not friendly to the president who think about what's happened here. And one of them is, Donald Trump, master thief, criminal, running some kind of elaborate conspiracy to bring things out of the White House and keep them secret, for potentially for political or financial gain. There are other people who his attitude is Trump is chaotic. He's careless. He's not that smart. He took these things almost by mistake, and now he's basically stamping his feet and saying they're mine. I don't want to give them up. Give me a sense of where you think the truth lies with respect to Trump's intelligence, carelessness, and the degree to which he might have brought motive to bear on taking these documents out of the White House and keeping them for this long at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, it's very hard to speculate on motive other than that he liked cool things. He saw things so he wanted to take them, and he was pretty much able to take them, and not just on classified information matters, on all kinds of things that crossed his desk. Some days he liked to eat a lot of French fries. Some days he took classified documents. He wanted them. Why did he want them? Because he could get them.
Right.
This coming from a man who apparently took documents that had classified information about weapons of mass destruction. Now, of course, the Justice Department never told us what those classified documents were in President Trump's house, but we did hear there was letters from Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin. We even found out that there was the pardon, the clemency for Roger Stone, who's going to be our guest today, by the way, in just a few moments. Things like that. And Russiagate documents. And this man had the audacity to come out and speak about President Trump and his classified documents that he had the right to take because he's the only person who had the right to declassify them. As this man knew he was harboring illegal documents on weapons of mass destruction? Is this some sort of joke? Now, as all this news comes out about Bolton, it's also being reported, and it's unverified by the Great America Show, but it's being reported by various outlets that former Vice President Mike Pence has also been implicated in the Department of Justice investigation of John Bolton related to Pence's reported framing of General Michael Flynn to get him fired, his illegal possession of classified documents, because, of course, Pence took classified documents when he wasn't supposed to, and his role on January 6th. Bolton recently described Pence as a consistent ally during President Trump's first term. Pence is also reportedly being probed for unlawful leaks, including sensitive national security matters from the Trump White House to the Marxist left media. Pence and Bolton are said to be facing indictments by federal grand juries, both relating to some of the same crimes. So, folks, the wheels of justice may finally be turning, as we've all been waiting for right here on the Great America Show. I've been promising they were coming. Meaningful ones are coming. And it seems, folks, that we're finally getting some of the wheels of justice to finally turn for the deep state, these bad folks who have done so much harm in this country. Speaking of bad folks and harm they've done to this country, Nancy Pelosi, who's barely wobbling around the halls of Congress these days, not being able to stand, guided by her staff, absolutely lost it yesterday when asked about the new January 6th panel and if she's worried that she could be a subject for her role in not sending and not approving the National Guard. Take a listen to good old Nancy Pelosi.
Congresswoman Pelosi, are you at all concerned that the new January 6th committee will find you liable for that day? Are you at all concerned about the new January 6th committee finding you liable for that day? Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions. Thank you.
Shut up! The old witch yelled just in time for Halloween. I don't know what's up with that woman, if she was drunk at the time, but from what I'm told from my people down in D.C., she's more often than not. Now, it's a very valid question, because in a documentary after January 6th, Nancy seemingly took accountability for that day.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean, the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question of how they had, but they don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
I take responsibility. Those are Nancy's words, who seemed more coherent in that video than she usually does. So now I guess it's time for the January 6th committee and the January 6th panel to get the answers that we've been waiting for. Why did Nancy not allow the National Guard to come on in? Now to some headlines. AOC and Bernie Sanders doing a town hall with CNN. And boy, did they get owned, folks. They got absolutely owned. Let's start with Bernie Sanders getting owned by a young fella. Bernie starts answering the question and then just freezes. Take a listen.
How do you think this shutdown reflects on Chuck Schumer's leadership?
Well, I think it reflects more on Mike Johnson's leadership and President Trump's leadership. This is a leadership which said it's okay to give well, how do you feel? You tell me. Think it's a good idea to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the richest people in the country and then make massive cuts to health care for working class people?
I think Chuck Schumer has voted for continuing resolutions 13 times in the last 4 years, and he has the opportunity to vote for one again, but he's refusing to come to the table.
I think, look.
Bernie says healthcare cuts for working class people. He left out a word, working class illegal people, because that's what the Democrats want. Of course, this is why they're holding the government hostage in all this. Now, Bernie was then asked about the messaging on this and why the Democrats are losing. And you're going to be very surprised by Bernie's answer on why the Democrats' messaging is so bad and why the Republican messaging is seemingly so good. It has to do with social media, he says.
Republicans have been appealing to audiences, especially young people like myself, online using social media. Why does Republican messaging on social media seem so much more effective than Democratic messaging, and what can we do about it?
Well, that's a great question. I think the Republicans are effective. They have learned a lot about social media. And by the way, it doesn't hurt that their friends own all of the major social media platforms. You know, Bezos owns Twitter or X. Zuckerberg owns Meta, Facebook, and Instagram. Mr. Ellison is going to own you pretty soon. I think he's going to take over CNN, not to mention CBS. So these guys have, you know, they can use algorithms now.
Imagine that, Bernie Sanders. Well, I wasn't aware that the big tech companies were the ones who spent $1 billion in favor of Donald Trump in 2020. I wasn't aware it was Mark Zuckerberg of Meta who spent $419 million for Donald Trump in 2020. Well, I guess the reason I probably wasn't aware of it was because it didn't happen, and the money that was spent was, of course, towards Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Joe Biden and Vice President Harris at the time. These people are just delusional, and I think they're trying to sell something that's just not there. Now, AOC, of course, was sitting there, as you saw, with good old Bernie, and she was asked by a concerned viewer, what are we supposed to do when the money runs out? Because yesterday and the day before yesterday, the rounds of paychecks were supposed to come from the federal government. They got their ones on the first of the month, but this would have been the first time now that they're actually missing paychecks. So what are you supposed to do when the money runs out and we can't afford food or groceries? AOC had a simple answer. Let's open the government, of course.
What do you suggest government workers do for food money when the paychecks stop coming?
I mean, these are the real questions that we have to be entertaining. And as I mentioned earlier, the best and most important solution to this is making sure that we reopen the government, not accept the inevitability of this, and come to a resolution as quickly as possible. Extending this shutdown would be a choice. Mike Johnson saying we want to make this the longest shutdown, saying this to prepare for this being the longest shutdown, that's not leadership. That is abdication of responsibility. It's an abdication to families like his, and a complete abdication of the responsibility that we have to people. Now, that being said, we do have to make sure that we come together as communities and that we also systemically expand our programming, like the SNAP cuts that just happened, in addition to the $1 trillion in healthcare cuts as well for families that are under financial duress.
Oh, I apologize, Mrs. AOC. Was it the Republicans who were holding the government hostage? Because the last vote that happened, which was today, the 10th vote to reopen the government, failed once again by a vote of 51-45, the majority, of course, being on the Republican side. So I'm sorry, Miss AOC. Who's the one who's holding this government hostage? It's simple. John Thune says the bill is there. It's ready to be signed by President Trump.
Well, I hope it doesn't last through Thanksgiving because that's going to be a lot of harm to the American people, and obviously a lot of harm to federal workers. There is a bill sitting at the desk right now that opens up the government. You all know that. The president would sign it today. The government opens up. It's simply a function of 5 Democrats joining the 3 Democrats who are already voting to open up the government. And I think that's the quickest way to end this.
Very simple. The bill is there. Tell Chuck Schumer to stop playing his games and stop waiting till the No Kings rally in 2 days, okay? The nonsensical No Kings rally. I mean, how big of an idiot do you have to be to go to one of those things? I mean, do you have nothing better to do on a Saturday afternoon? I mean, you got like the best football on of the week, college football. You spend time with your kids, your family. Spend time with your loved ones. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to go to the No Kings rally and wear our absurd clothing, or if you're in Portland, wear no clothes at all. That's what we're doing on our Saturday afternoon. Well, I've got a wedding to go to on Saturday, so unfortunately you can count me out for the No Kings rally. Maybe I'll make the next one. See if we can get spit on by any of the good folks there, because we know they're all violent, repulsive people who go to those things. So maybe we'll make the next one. Folks, we're going to take a quick break here. On the other side of this quick break, we're going to be joined by our good friend, the great Roger Stone, to get his take on all of this and much, much more. President Trump reportedly going to meet with Vladimir Putin in Budapest. Is this the end of the war? And the CIA caught running covert operations in Venezuela. What's happening over there? We're going to take all of this up and much, much more with the great Roger Stone on the other side of this quick break. Please stay with us, folks. We're coming right back. The Great America Show continues.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, MyPillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great, and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs, or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
Roger, as always, a delight to talk with you, especially in the time of indictments. And you're the only person I want to talk to when it comes to, because you know it better than anybody else. You were a victim of the Justice Department. You were a victim of the system, and you were a victim of the deep state. We're finally starting to see the house of cards start to fall. We saw it with Big Tish James, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We saw it with James Comey. We're seeing it with people like John Bolton now, among other folks who have been running around free, Roger, for a few years, just gloating and saying, I'm untouchable.
Yeah, that's the most outrageous thing, John, and that is that the Democrats now claim that Donald Trump is weaponizing the Justice Department to go after his political enemies and to limit free speech rights. Yeah. This is laughable nonsense. In other words, they are once again accusing Trump of exactly what they have done for the last 12 years. I wrote a great piece about this at stonecoldtruth.com, which is, where my Substack appears. But these people engaged in a seditious conspiracy that began in July of 2017, continues through the 2016 election and the first years of Donald Trump's presidency, the first 3 years, all the way through the 2020 election, where they manipulate the election results. Then, of course, manifests itself also in 2 impeachments, both of them fraudulent. Then goes on, of course, to Jack Smith's investigation of the Trump's objection to the results of the 2020 election, all of which is permissible under the First Amendment. And that included spying, just as they spied on his presidential campaign in 2016. It includes spying on his spying on 8 U.S. senators. So these people are guilty of egregious crimes. And when you talk about holding them accountable, they start screaming that you're weaponizing the system against them. It's almost laughable.
It is.
The record is so absolutely clear. So in the case of John Bolton, because by the time this airs, he may have already been charged. Washington leaks like a sieve. It would seem to me, just on the basis of what we know, this is pretty straightforward, which is, I believe that he held on to classified documents that he wasn't legally allowed to possess, that he had to turn back in after his federal service. Now, what he may have done with those documents, other than using them for his book, whether he sold them or shared them, we don't yet know that. But to me, there are far more serious indictments that need to take place. John Brennan comes to mind. First of all, Comey, while I'm glad to see that he was charged in the Eastern District of Virginia, and even then only after a struggle.
Yeah.
As I think I'm the first person to reveal, the prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Siebert, had an egregious conflict of interest. John, his father-in-law, that is his wife's father, who also represented James Comey as a lawyer, was also the godfather to James Comey's daughter. Therefore, Siebert should have recused himself from the very beginning. Instead, he began preparing a 51-page memo outlining why James Comey should not be prosecuted. President Trump rightfully fired him.
Yeah.
I think technically he resigned, but he resigned right ahead of being canned. And he replaced him, as he has the right to do, with Lindsay Halligan, a White House lawyer, who the mainstream media continues to malign as, quote unquote, an insurance lawyer. Well, actually, she was a partner head of the civil litigation department of a fairly large law firm. She's a very able woman, and she secured an indictment of not only James Comey, but as you point out, Letitia James. So Comey's tactic now is to question the legality of Halligan's appointment. In other words, he's going to claim because she is there as a 120-day interim U.S. attorney that appointment is somehow invalid, which would invalidate his indictment. Talking to brilliant lawyers I know, they say that argument is not legally sound. However, as I learned in my trial, in these highly politicized cases and these deep state-controlled jurisdictions, like the Eastern District of Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C., the Constitution, the law, the rules, the facts, none of these things matter.
Yeah.
So we shall see whether this gambit by James Comey to have his indictment essentially dismissed because he questions the validity of the appointment of the prosecutor who indicted him is successful. On the merits, it should not be. On the law, it should not be.
Yeah.
But as I learned the hard way, the law has very little to do with this.
Yeah. If there was some validity on him dismissing the case based on the premise of the case, I mean, you'd go for that. But him going for technicalities, which doesn't make sense to me. It's like saying a police officer who just became a police officer, Roger, who's under the probationary period, doesn't have the validity or right to make arrest, or a firefighter who just got on the job is not supposed to be putting out fires because he just got on the job and he's a new guy. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. It's almost like James Comey's being represented by our good friend Abby Lowell, the stupidity of it all.
Well, it's important to understand the sequence of events here. President Trump appointed Eric Siebert, which is probably not a good idea.
Horrible.
Because he was recommended by Governor Glenn Youngkin. And he
Trump.
could at least theoretically have gotten the support of the two U.S. senators from Virginia, both of whom are whacked out leftists.
Yep.
But he was not confirmed, and therefore President Trump then gave him a temporary 120-day appointment. But that ran out. Then the federal judges, here's the tip-off that he's a bad guy. The federal judges in the district designated him as the U.S. attorney.
Of course.
President Trump then fired him, which very clearly resets the president's time frame to appoint a new interim attorney for 120 days, as he had done in the case of Siebert himself. So there's a lot of technicalities here, but you're right, it is pretty outrageous. Now we turn to the question of Letitia James.
Big Tish.
She claims, of course, that she's innocent. This is just a typographical or a clerical error. Yeah. But the truth is, we learned this week that she herself has actually prosecuted people for doing exactly what she herself has done. I know you can't make this stuff up.
No.
To be very specific, one of the things you look at in these cases, one of the things that I presume that Halligan will make in her presentation to the court is the pattern. This is not a one-off. She has a 43-year history of mortgage fraud. A fraud in the very first mortgage she ever got when she claimed that her father was her husband in order to use his balance sheet to qualify for the mortgage. Fraud when she applied for a HAMP mortgage on an investment property where she claimed that there were only 4 units, which is what was required by law, when there were in fact 5. Fraud in this Norfolk, Virginia property. She has an additional mortgage on that property. It's not even listed on her state required disclosure statement. So in other words, she has about $400,000 worth of mortgages on a property that's appraised for about, at max, $150,000.
Oh my goodness.
Meaning she did exactly what she accused Donald Trump of doing, which is to say, inflating the value of her assets. This is outrageous. I don't think that her legal defense is going to work. And if this case goes to trial, if there is a fair trial, if there's a non-politicized jury, I think she'll be convicted. But again, this is the Eastern District of Virginia. You got to wonder whether the Constitution, the law, or the facts really matter.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
So what about now? So this is just Virginia. Now we got to talk about New York, about her mortgage fraud that she committed there, listing it as a 4-bedroom when it was really a 4 residence, when it's really a 5 residence, which requires a commercial mortgage, commercial insurance, and ramps the prices up to things 20-30% possibly. Do we expect indictments now out of the Southern District of New York?
I doubt it, because I don't think they would be fruitful. I mean, I don't think you bring an indictment unless you think there's a reasonable chance of conviction. So if you bring these actions in either the Southern or the Eastern District of New York, where I think she really did commit very serious crimes, the chances of a conviction with a Democrat judge and an all-Democrat jury, as I experienced the hard way in D.C., is about 0. The real question, of course, has to do with, rather than Letitia, has to do with Comey, which is the Bolton indictment, as I say, is an easy one. But when and will we see indictments of John Brennan, Comey regarding his involvement in the Russian collusion hoax, James Clapper and his involvement, Susan Rice, Joe Biden, Robert Mueller, Rod Rosenstein, Andrew Weissman? When will we see indictments of those people? If we do not, if there is no justice, if there is no accountability, then we really do have to question the current Justice Department. I'm still praying that we'll see action in those regards. An indictment of John Bolton, which may or may not happen today, that would buy them a little bit of time among the president's supporters. But there has to be accountability and justice for what was the greatest single dirty trick in American political history, an abuse of power that began in 2017 but continued all the way to 2024, which, John, means that the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of Florida, Jason Quinones, has the authority, is confirmed by the Senate, has the authority to bring these charges in the Southern District of Florida, where very famously, as you know, they raided President Trump's home.
So I love President Trump to death. I love everything about him. I agree with him about 99% of the time, 95 to 95% of the time. But Roger, I say it all the time here. If his administration doesn't secure indictments on these people, anybody who's part of his administration, any part of MAGA, can kiss their chances goodbye on anything, on any election that they're going to move forward. And that includes, unfortunately, J.D. Vance or anybody who's rolled with them this time around. We were promised that these people were going to be held accountable. And I'm not just saying held accountable for the sake of retribution, held accountable to let them know that this shit can never be done again to people like you or Paul Manafort or General Michael Flynn. That's what it needs to be held for truth, justice in the American way, not as retribution as the mainstream media wants to put it out. These people, Roger, some of them committed treason, and we're supposed to allow that to just fly. Whereas if John Bolton stole classified information, it's whatever. It is what it is. If Mike Pence stole classified information, it is what it is. I mean, you keep hearing it's a conspiracy. It's an ongoing conspiracy. Okay, we get it. How long are you going to allow the conspiracy to continue before you say the buck stops here?
I agree. Well, let's move on. To talk about the 2026 elections, which will be a crucial election, we don't need anything that dispirits or unmotivates the base. Failure to actually hold people accountable would fit within that criteria, in my opinion. On the other hand, I think we beat this up. We all understand what needs to be done.
Yeah.
It remains to be seen whether it will happen.
Yeah.
Let's move on. John, the other thing I thought was very significant this week, a real breakthrough. For the first time ever, the Russians are going to share with us, have shared with us, substantial information from their files regarding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we do know from earlier declassification of documents that J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, told Lyndon Johnson that the KGB had conducted their own independent investigation of Kennedy's murder, and they had come to the conclusion that Kennedy's murder was basically directed by LBJ himself and done with the cooperation of the Central Intelligence Agency, organized crime, and Big Texas Oil. Exactly the thesis of my New York Times best-selling book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, which, by the way, you can go to themanwhokilledkennedy.com. That's themanwhokilledkennedy.com, and get this pot boiler if you have not already done so. But the other thing that we're going to learn, I think, from these documents, and I give Congresswoman Paulina Luna a huge amount of credit for having the tenacity to fight for these, because the president's original ordering the National Archives to turn over all documents, to make public all documents pertaining to the Kennedy assassination, misunderstood that there are a number of agencies of government, like the CIA, like the FBI, like the IRS, like Army Intelligence and others, who still had documents that had never been turned over to the National Archives. And therefore, Tulsi Gabbard and Luna have worked very hard to get the CIA to spit up the files regarding their agent involved in this entire matter. That has been very illuminating, kind of proves the CIA's involvement. Now these Russian files, I think this is very significant.
Yeah, and folks, you go to stonezone.com or themanwhokilledkennedy.com and get your signed copy of Roger's book, one of his New York Times bestsellers. He's got a few of them, and hopefully he's got some more to come in the years to come. Let's talk a little bit about Vladimir Putin and Russia. President Trump and Putin today agreeing that they're going to meet, I guess, in Hungary, right, to try to maybe finally put an end to this war. And President Trump, I've got to tell you, man, he plays a game that I've never seen anyone play before and gets away with things that I've never seen anyone get away with. I mean, telling Zelensky that he's going to give him missiles that'll ostensibly be launched at Russia. Maybe this opens Vladimir Putin's eyes to let him know that Donald Trump wants to put an end to this thing one way or another.
Look, Trump is a master negotiator. I was very encouraged by this news today, particularly based on the fact that it came after a long phone conversation between Putin and Trump. The president announced on Truth Social not long ago that they would meet in Budapest, but that prior to the meeting in Budapest, that a high-level team headed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio would meet almost immediately. To me, that means that there are things to talk about, that they must have made some progress. And every American, I think, prays for peace. It is outrageous to me that even with this negotiated agreement between Hamas and Israel regarding Gaza and the release of our hostages, that they still won't give President Trump the Nobel Peace Prize, which he very definitely agrees. Now, I have been criticized for this, but I suggested that the woman they gave it to, Maria Corina Machado, who is the leader of the democratic resistance in Venezuela, and I'm not saying she's not deserving, but she's, she gets millions of dollars from our CIA. She should do the right thing. She should accept the award, then she should turn around and give it to the person who really honestly deserves it, And that, of course, would be President Donald Trump.
Yeah, I agree with you. And he definitely did deserve it. But you know what, Roger? And so many people on this show have written to me and said the same thing. The Nobel Peace Prize at this point has been so diluted for the fact that they gave it to Barack Obama simply because he was the first black president, but launched the most amount of missiles among any president in modern history against people overseas. That doesn't seem like peace to me. So, I'm at the point, Roger, I think it's been so diluted by the people that they've given it to that who gives a damn at this point, right?
Well, here's a little known fact, of course. Alfred Nobel's great accomplishment in life is that he invented dynamite. So, in fact, he was an agent of death, and he dreamed up the Nobel Peace Prize to try to rehabilitate himself and to be known as somehow an advocate for peace. Nonetheless, this globalist elitist group in Norway, you imagine what that meeting's like, they should still give the president the gift because the award because he's earned it.
Yeah, he definitely has. There's nobody who's been a more peaceful president than in my lifetime, Roger. And we see you mentioned Venezuela. I don't know if you've caught up on the news, Roger, that the CIA has admitted they're running covert operations in Venezuela. I've never heard the CIA come out and admit that they were doing something. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a little odd. I'm with the hardliners. I'm with the president and Secretary Rubio and Tulsi Gabbard. I think that Maduro is a bad guy. He's clearly a Marxist, narco-Marxist drug trafficker. All of this rhetoric about him cracking down on drug trafficking is nonsensical, and I think he has to go. There are others who are accommodationists who say, "Oh, maybe we can reach terms with him, and he will agree to stop trafficking drugs and stop trafficking with terrorism." He can't be trusted. He is a hardline Marxist, like Hugo Chavez before him, and I think he has to be removed. I support the administration's efforts in this area.
So you think that the CIA operation is less of a drug operation and more of a regime change operation? Is that correct?
Well, not necessarily regime change, but I do think they're trafficking drugs, and if that's true, that has to be stopped. That's why I think bombing the boats trafficking drugs, the president does have the authority to do. Now, that boat did look pretty small to me. I got to wonder how many drugs were on there, but just the same, it's about the principle.
Yeah, as you know, with fentanyl, it takes a pin needle of fentanyl to kill somebody. So if you got a 10-pound bag of it, that could take out a few people. I'm very against the regime changes, Roger, just based on what we've seen in the Middle East, right? But I think this is a far different picture and a far different scenario. The regime changes we've done in the Middle East have done nothing but destabilize countries that, quite honestly, most of them didn't need our help doing. This is a problem with Venezuela that's destabilizing America with the drug trade and what he's doing to his people. And what he's doing to his people has been a huge result of the mass migration problem we have in this country and other countries like Colombia. So this is one that I think we do look at and say, the pros outweigh the cons with what Maduro has done to his people, to his country, to mass migration and the drug traffic trade. That's my take on it, Raj.
Well, communism is on the move in this hemisphere, and it's a serious problem, not only in Venezuela, but also in Honduras, where basically the Biden administration framed the previous pro-U.S. president for drug dealing, which he's not guilty of. The only evidence against him was the word of two convicted drug dealers. It's a frame job. Xiomara Castro, the current head of Honduras, is a hardline Marxist, cooperating with the regimes in Venezuela and in Cuba. So look at and the Chinese, of course, are propping them all up. Yeah. So I applaud. I wrote a piece on this last week. I applaud Secretary of State Marco Rubio for the hard line he's taking against communism in this hemisphere. The Marxist and the narcotics trafficking are closely entwined. Finally, we have an administration and a president and a Secretary of State who are doing something about it. John, we got to leave it there. I'm great to be with you again, though.
That is absolutely perfect. That's a wrap point. Roger, we'll see you next week, my friend. You want to preview the show tonight, the Stone Zone, WABC Radio? You got a good guest? What's happening?
I'm going to be digging very deep into these Russian documents that have just been turned over regarding the Kennedy assassination. So 8 o'clock tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern at WABCRadio.com. It's the Stone Zone. Check it out.
WABCRadio.com, the great Roger Stone. Roger, we'll see you next week, my friend.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody, and thank you, Roger Stone, for being with us today here on The Great America Show. Folks, we'll see you back here tomorrow for The Great America Show, Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Same time, same place. Until then, may God bless you, may God bless America, and may God bless the great Lou Dobbs. God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow, folks.